Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Cinema d'Amore. I'm your host, Chuck, joined by
Justin.
And this time, this month, we're getting into the swing of things. If you like that pun. Yeah, we're getting into sports movies this month.
Yeah. Chosen by you, your theme.
I do like me some sports.
You have two movies in this theme. What was your primary movie? Is it this one or your last one?
It's this one.
Okay. This is the movie that made you want to do sports as a theme.
Yeah, it mixes all the best parts about sports. The cheating, the lying.
The mafia.
The organized crime. All the best things that you could want from sports. Old-timey guys doing some out-there accents. Gangsters.
Christopher Lloyd.
Yeah, Christopher Lloyd. Yeah, we're talking about 8 Men Out. A film about the White Sox, or as they were known later, the Black Sox of 1919. We missed the 100th anniversary by 5 years. If we'd have done this early on, we could have.
The anniversary of one of the biggest conspiracy frauds in sports history. I can't believe we missed that anniversary.
Yeah. We could have been there. We could have done the 100th anniversary.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
We let that go. We missed out.
This is everyone's big breakout movie. John Cusack, nobody knew who he was before this movie. Christopher Lloyd, he wasn't in anything before this movie.
Michael Rooker, this is early. This might be like
he was like the veteran. He was the
Henry.
veteran actor in this one.
I don't know how he went from being Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, to just a wisecracking first baseman.
They were pretty much the same role.
But yeah, bad guys in general.
He scares me a little bit. He just seems a little unhinged all the time.
He's just ready to fly off the handle at any moment.
Yeah.
This is back in the day when they played on cheap fields and made zero money. That's the big reason for why they get the idea to throw the World Series is because they don't get paid enough, which by itself is slightly comedic by today's standards, where most people, a lot of baseball players, like Shohei Ohtani, the most famous baseball player out there for the Dodgers right now, is technically, I think, supposed to be making like $70 million a year, but they use like loopholes.
And he's also involved in a gambling
He's also
scheme.
involved in gambling. Gambling is involved in baseball more frequently than any other sport, it seems like. It's also why Pete Rose
He's
is
like,
not
I speak Japanese. I don't know what I'm
in the
doing.
Hall of
Is
Fame.
illegal.
Yeah, he's
That was my translator.
he's the only one
doing
that
all
got away with it. Maybe.
Probably. Yeah, this movie is funny. It's sort of like they won, but they didn't. And I just feel like that's the message. That's the underlying message of the movie. This was Robbie Robertson who shot this. He's in tons of bigger movies now. I think he's like Tarantino's guy. He did shot the last couple movies. Obviously, I don't know if it's not a pure sports movie. When I say pure, the plot isn't based around winning a game or something in particular.
You're right. It isn't about winning a game.
The sporting aspect of it is weird because I feel like you wouldn't necessarily call organized crime a sport or litigation a sport, but they kind of are sports too. So as we move through those themes along with baseball, you definitely are getting a little unconventional. I mean, it's not the natural.
The natural where a guy gets like magical abilities to play baseball.
Yeah.
That's your standard for a pure baseball film.
Yeah, it's all about baseball. Or like anything with Kevin Costner that's not a Western. He's playing baseball. He's obsessed with baseball.
It's America's pastime.
Now, I would have been more impressed probably if you picked a really good football movie, because I don't think there are many.
There's not a lot. Football, for whatever reason, doesn't necessarily... Yeah, I feel like it's exciting to watch actual football games, but for whatever reason, that doesn't translate to movies all that well, or at least not as many number as like basketball or baseball. There's more of those movies. I mean, Friday Night Lights is a good movie.
If they could apply like Moneyball to football, that might work. But then it would be like, yeah, that's a sports movie, but it's also a math movie.
Nobody wants that.
If you like math.
Nobody wants math.
Do you like statistics? That's what it really is. Do you like Brad Pitt? You're going to get a lot of Brad Pitt. I also don't know how I feel about watching this post Boardwalk Empire. That's really built up Chicago 1919 for me with Arnold Rothstein. And this Arnold Rothstein is just harder for me to stomach. He doesn't seem as cold and calculated as the Rothstein in Boardwalk Empire. Like, this guy seems like kind of a doofus. Everyone keeps telling you don't fuck this guy over, but when you meet the guy, he doesn't have the scary vibes of like he's gonna kill everybody. In fact, whenever they threaten anybody, it just seems lighthearted. I don't really know how to explain it. Like, there's a moment in this movie where the guy threatens to kill the tier 2 pitcher's wife if he doesn't throw the game. We'll fucking kill her. It just comes off so lighthearted to me. Like, it's a serious threat. It definitely affects that guy. But as I'm watching it, I'm like, these guys just aren't as scary as the Boardwalk Empire guys. Like,
yeah,
I don't really feel like anyone's going to get taken out at any moment. I feel like this guy's up bluffing.
I feel like these ones are probably more correct. I have a feeling
Yeah.
the Boardwalk Empire ones are the ones that are like way more exaggerated. Like, I guarantee you're like, that threat didn't sound very convincing. I was like, I guarantee that's exactly how that threat was delivered in 1919, because they didn't just like walk up to people and be like, I'm going to stab your wife tomorrow and give them all the details. It's just like, hey, pal,
Boardwalk Empire didn't even do that. We just cut
to
to people getting shot up.
yeah. That's what happens. You watch too much HBO. You think that's real life.
Shit. This is the first time that I've watched this movie. I've seen it on television before. I do remember John Cusack playing baseball with Charlie Sheen. That's like as far as my memory goes. But yeah, when you were like 8 Men Out, I'm like, oh, this is the big baseball fraud from 1919, right? That's what I remembered. This movie, I don't think it's like a perfect movie, obviously. But for the men that they have to gather for this, the movie's like, we have to reach out and we have to show how each person was contacted, whether in the grand scheme of things that person matters or doesn't matter. Also, those two guys that were like the base for the audience, that were like the guys that were trying to see if they were cheating.
Yeah.
They were like there to like help narrate a story that maybe didn't need them. You know, there was enough people that were like, they're fucking cheating. Like, they're throwing this game. We know that they're throwing this game. Half the players and everyone watching those games are like, what the fuck are they doing? And it all comes down to David Strahan or something like that. He's the best 40-year-old baseball player. And they won't pay him more than he's worth, which is nothing. He's not worth anything. I did like how this movie focused on how a lot of them were about the money. We want this money. We're underpaid. But when they were actually out there playing the game, it was eating up a lot of them that they had to play poorly. Except maybe Michael Rooker. He was the only one that was like legitimately cool about obviously throwing the game.
He just doesn't care.
Everyone else was like, I'm better than this. Catcher that's going crazy. Like, what are you fucking doing? Like, I don't understand what you're doing. Who was Kid? What was his role? The character Kid?
The manager?
He was a baseball manager.
Yeah.
I thought he was a manager, but I wasn't sure his exact role. But yeah, the manager was just like, they're fucking throwing this. Like, what is happening here?
Yeah, that's the problem. Even today, when people say that, like, oh, they're like fixing games or something with any sport, you hear that all the time of, oh, it's someone's in on it. And this is a good example showing that it'll never work unless every single person at all levels would have to be involved in getting paid off, because all it takes is one person to not be involved, and it's like they're immediately going to go, oh, everyone around me's cheating, like I'm going to report this to somebody. Like, you can't throw games or like fix games unless every single person involved, from the referees, the umpires, the players, the managers, every single person would have to be getting paid to make this work.
Except for, as Rooker points out earlier in the movie, boxing. Boxing's a lot easier.
There's only two guys. Well, yeah, I guess that's the point. Yeah, the less people involved, the easier it becomes.
He literally described the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight.
Yeah.
We could show up, like, you could take the person out and somebody gets really injured, or we could just go in so and we both make a lot of money. And I'm like, that is literally what just happened recently.
Yeah, like,
that was all just about making
$50.
money.
What does that guy get? That guy doesn't get anything. Like, oh man, that guy came in and just got knocked out. Yeah, we could have just split the money and not hurt each other.
And that is a prime example of, we were boxing then, and it's like, 100 years ago, $25. Today's world, $20 million for a big name, obviously. Because we had what was it? Christopher Lloyd played what was it? Billy Burns, like an old baseball player, and I don't know the other guy that was
Sleepy Bill Burns.
Like, I hear a name like that and I go, I don't even know if that's a good thing.
I don't think it was. Well, judging by everyone else's reference to him, it's like, I think it was probably like they're referring to him in the same way they'd say like Sleepy Joe Biden, like, or Sleepy Bill Burns never does anything on the mound.
And his like henchman buddy that was like the equivalent of him, but in the boxing world. Yeah. And they had that mafia guy that just like fucking roasts them for like no reason at all. Like, They're like, dude, we have a proposition for you. And he's like, all right, I'm going to make fun of you first. He also, I think that was probably my favorite reaction in the whole movie. I don't even know who that actor is, their mafia contact that they had. But when they're losing the one game and everyone's like legitimately booing and he's doing that, like that really obviously fake boo, like, boo, I can't believe they suck. Like, that's my favorite.
These guys
That's my favorite
stink.
moment in this whole movie. Yeah, with a big smile on his face.
Yeah, everyone back in the day had to have goofy nicknames to describe themselves. Also, if you look up any of the pictures of all of these players, it's everyone always makes that same joke of the actor in the movie versus the guy they played in real life, and how it's like, oh, that guy's way more handsome, the actor, than the real life person. But these guys are like, it's like he was 26 years old, and I looked at a picture. I'm like, that guy looks like he's 50. Like, what are you talking about? He's 26 years old. Like, it's like I'm sure they were actually like age appropriate for the actors that played them in the movie, but just the difference from the 80s to 1919.
Yeah, or the like even today's athletes in baseball compared to them, like you don't see a fat baseball player, and you'll see
You do
like
every once in a while.
back then it's like Harry Nux over there.
Oh,
He's the best batter in the world, and he's like out of breath.
Like they've
from
never
his
worked out a
constant
day in their
cigar smoke.
life. Yeah.
Yeah, they never.
Eating like
Never.
10 hot dogs in the dugout.
Oh, that sounds like a dream.
Yeah.
Who was that child that was with them in the war baseball uniform?
Probably just the bat boy.
Okay, there's like a kid that was like not the kids, like the kids that were interested in baseball. There was like one wearing a uniform that was in the dugout. And I'm like, who is that kid? Like, is he being babysat or something like that?
He's the bat boy. He's gotta collect all the bats.
God.
Yeah, that's why they needed to be paid $20,000 to throw a game, because they knew they were gonna die within 10 years from a heart attack or something.
Yeah, like the tier 1 pitcher was like, dude, my spine hurts when I throw a baseball really badly. I'm in a lot of pain. I can't do this much longer. I do like, though, that his bonus was the exact same amount that he was told that the scam would be. So, like, had they just given him his bonus, that the whole thing might have... Basically, it's like... It's against capitalism, this movie. It's like anti-corporation. It's like, if you just paid me well, you would have been in business and you wouldn't have to worry about any of this shit.
Yeah, the moment when they win the season, they win their championship to go to the World Series, and they go in the locker room and they go, "Hey, where's that bonus they said they were going to give us?" And I was like, "This is the bonus," and it's like all the champagne on the thing, and then they open it up,
Yeah,
and
the
like,
champagne.
it's flat. Which I think the same thing too when you're like, this movie seems very anti-capitalist, which makes me laugh because the owner of the team his nickname's Commie, so his nickname is that, and they keep referring to like they got the Reds out of the country and stuff like that. And I'm like, but they keep calling that guy Commie.
You're talking about too many people. You have to have everybody on board, and so this thing was kind of set up to fail from the beginning. And we talk about how obvious it was when they're on the ball field, when they're playing. But then there's moments like when they're on the train, or when they're in the hotel room, or they're all on the hotel floor, and some people are being like shady, like that guy that just like makes eye contact with the other guy and like takes off like as if he wasn't seen. Yeah, you could tell shit's going on. It wouldn't take a genius to know that shit wasn't going on.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that there were two people trying to pay for the same thing for them to throw the game.
Yeah. I mean, all the money, I guess, was technically coming from the same place, though, since they're both like getting the money from the same. They're both getting it from Rothstein.
And I assumed that like some people would have been killed because they took that money and they're like, we're immediately gambling with all this money that we got here. That's not ours, and we could lose.
Yeah. Enough of the bets must have went the right way that no one lost enough money from them to like want to do anything further. Because at the end, they all kind of go their separate ways. The different gamblers and Arnold Rothstein, even though they're all connected to it in some way, and they keep getting referred to in the trial that they were involved. But the trial ends up becoming less about. It never really goes after any of the guys that paid for it. It pretty much is, they almost look at it as there's no real law against these guys paying you to throw the game, but it's against the law for you to take money to throw the game. So it's like, yeah, they never go after any of the gangsters or anything, the betting people. They just go after the baseball players.
Oh, yeah, and we still have fraud in sports. What was the game a couple years ago? I think it was baseball, where they were like, the one where they were like listening to the calls and then like beating a trash can to like signal what was being done. And I was like, how do people not pick up on what the fuck that trash can? Like, there's just a guy that has to like, I gotta hit the trash can twice so they know that it's a curveball, you know?
There was that one. Like I said, it does seem to happen in baseball more than most other sports. I don't know if it's just because maybe it's a slower game. It is slightly easier to control. Like it's harder to.
Hey, football had the deflated
Yeah,
footballs.
football. We had that. We had. They had the same thing where they were stealing signals by filming practices and stuff like that. We've had that happen a couple times. So we've had that. But yeah, baseball just keeps drawing them back in to keep doing something, keep getting involved.
It makes you want to be a criminal.
Even though steroids in theory would help you in any sport, it's only really baseball that it got heavily connected to. Like I'm sure that I know there's football players in the past that have been caught for like substances, and I'm sure they get it in basketball and stuff
The
too.
Tour de France.
Other things. But for whatever reason, it's like yeah, what is it about baseball that just keeps bringing people back? Of like, we got to find a way we can cheat at this somehow. We gotta figure out a way. Is it just that boring of a game that they just have to find some way to make it interesting?
I mean, it's a pretty simple game, I would say. Like, I remember whenever I was 5 or 6, my parents put me in, like, the Little League thing. And I never even fucking played baseball or watched baseball before that. And when I showed up, they were like, okay, we're just going to start playing. They just assumed that we all knew baseball. And I'm like, my parents never taught me anything about baseball. But you can pick it up in, like, no time at all.
Yeah.
Like, you 100% can understand the game by watching like one game. But then you get games like football where like the rules get to become so insane that you're like, oh, they took a step back at a quarter of the inch when the running back took 2 steps forward and they were within 20 yards of the goal, and you
that
can't
guy
do
looked
that.
At the quarterback,
like,
and I didn't
what?
like how he looked at him.
Yeah, he signaled that's illegal. We can't do that. And then baseball is just sort of like, dude, it is what it is. It's about as simple as it gets. Maybe hockey's like
put all the guys out in the field and
slightly
try to
complicated,
hit
but
the ball and catch it and throw it.
Is this your favorite baseball movie?
It's up there. I mean,
or is it not baseball enough?
Field of Dreams is a good baseball movie.
Or Angels in the Outfield.
Angels in the Outfield is a good one. Field of Dreams, basically, that's like a good.
You have to have dead people with your baseball.
You can put like a double feature of this with Field of Dreams because it's like all the same. It's mostly the same players that are in Field of Dreams, and that's their whole thing. Is oh yeah, we all got kicked out of baseball because of the cheating thing, and now we can finally play baseball again. It's a good. It's got a connection there between those two films.
I haven't seen that movie in so long, but I did love it. I love that movie.
Yeah.
I remember back in the day when McDonald's was doing like VHSs that they would sell, and that was one of them. But let me peek at something real quick.
Is there baseball going on out there?
A lot of baseball going on. No, somebody rang my doorbell. It's our neighbor. I think she dropped something off. She was already walking away whenever I looked. Because I was like, who the fuck's... I wanted to make sure there wasn't like some package I had to sign for, or I would have ran down and signed for it. But it was just a neighbor.
Yeah.
They'll listen to the podcast. I'm like, that son of a bitch was home and he didn't open the door. I don't even like movies. I just listen to the neighbor's podcast to see if they're ever talking shit on me. Yeah, and I fail not. I do think what makes this one a little bit more interesting in the scheme of sports movies, like you called me on it, is that there's like this love for the sport, and so many people are like torn from it, and the player's story is way more interesting than anybody else's story. Like, yeah, I don't care about Kami. They were making fun of him in the beginning. Like, they all fucking hate that guy. See, and that's like another thing. Just if you're a good boss, people will work for you. They'll want to work for you.
Again, the same way that they did 100 years ago with our local team, the Pittsburgh Pirates. They did that at the end of last season. They benched a player for like the last 2 or 3 games or something because they would have had to pay him a bonus of some type. I can't remember what. I think it was just for literally like how many games he might have played, or if he would have hit like one more home run, he would have they would have to pay him like an extra $100,000 or something. So they purposely just didn't play him the last 5 games of the season or something. Which is exactly what happens in this film. I imagine it happens all the time with people, like they probably don't actually do anything, but I still have a feeling there's probably all the time people going, man, like if someone would just pay me, I'd like totally throw that game or, miss, go out or something like that, not try hard.
Yeah, I mean, some of the other players were interesting that they had, like, the one guy that overheard them in the bathroom, and he's like, I want in. And the other guy's like, you're in, man.
He's not even gonna play.
Yeah, he's like, he's gonna just sit on the bench the whole time. Why are we paying him? So like they do some people get in on it that are not even really involved in the game. Yeah, there's people that are like don't have a clue what's going on. There's people that figured out what was going on but try to like stay out of it. The college boy, like the 50-year-old
What a
college
nerd! He
boy
went
that
to
they have.
school.
And well, then they have what was it, Joe Jackson or
Yeah,
whatever? Is that his name? Joe Jackson. They play him off like he can't read, and they make a point of that because he's got to sign a confession that he doesn't understand, which I'm sure has happened in the past. People just
I
like,
was
I
about to
mean, we
say
saw
we've
Making a
definitely seen
Murderer.
that.
They take yeah, they've definitely taken advantage of people that don't understand the legal system at all. Like I felt that was his name Eddie, the main pitcher. I thought he was smart too, but like they do have that shot of when he comes out and he signed the confession, and they're like, "Did you get immunity?" And he's like, "What's that?" I'm like, Jesus Christ, dude. Like he won the clear his conscience, but he didn't like legally like protect himself in any
It's
way.
all right. All the confessions wound up going missing anyway. So
Yeah, Joe Jackson's like he can't read, he can't write. He does that X for like his signature, and then that that kid that they keep showing the main kid that is like a big fan of theirs, who's like he's just randomly in the crowd of like all those adults, and he's like, "Tell me it isn't so, Joe, that you didn't do that," and like everyone's dead quiet, like you gotta talk, you gotta say something to this kid. You can't walk away from this child.
yeah, nothing's changed since the end credits. Those guys are still not allowed in the Hall of Fame, and they never did get never had like any of their stuff reinstated for even though they've all been dead now for a long time. But I know their family members.
That doesn't stop them
Yeah,
from bitching about it.
their family members are still trying. Mostly, pretty much because everyone agrees that everybody was involved in it except for Joe Jackson and Buck Weaver. Those are the only two they still say they weren't
Let me
involved.
ask you this. I mean, it's like a big scandal. The resolution of the movie is like this smaller Hoboken team, and people are like, oh, that's Joe Jackson. They're like arguing in the stands amongst each other whether it's him or not. And Buck Weaver's there, like, it's not him. But they don't recognize him either. I feel like, is it
Just
just
because
because
they're
they
not on
don't?
TV.
Like they would have to know what that guy. Yeah, but they had baseball cards and shit then. Like if you're really that big into sports, I think you would recognize him just as much as the other one.
Yeah, it still wasn't. I still don't think it was ever. It wasn't that big for not the way it is today. I mean, there's people today that you could see a guy that plays on a football team, even though you've probably seen him on the field, and he could like walk by and be like, I don't know, I don't recognize that guy if he's not one of the super high, most famous people.
Yeah, but I mean, they were kind of famous for the
Yeah,
scandal. That's like the only thing. Like, I think a lot of those people, like when we start hearing about any sort of scandal, names come out of the woodwork we don't know, but we learn to know. So I feel like, yeah, obviously they're listening to the radio, they're not seeing people. The photography was not as good. People did read a lot of newspapers. I mean, this movie had maybe more newspapers than I've ever seen in a movie not about newspapers. I liked how they used them like tomatoes when they got mad. They're just like, I'm gonna throw my newspaper on the field.
everyone's got one.
Thing.
All the kids on the corner are selling them.
But I was gonna say the name Bucky, just nobody wants that nickname after
That's
this.
what killed it.
Yeah, he disappointed them all. I really liked Cusack's role in this bit. He played the role not way over the top, even though they kind of don't probably necessarily need him sulking in the middle of the night while he's talking to random children. I thought that role was pretty good, where like he knows about it, but he's not trying to involve himself in it so that he has like a clear conscience. But because he knows about it and he's literally linked to being in the fraud, he's more or less, he is being punished for that decision. Just like the court case shit where he's like bitching about like wanting his own separate trial, which makes sense because he is in a league of his own. But then, yeah, you get the verdict at the end that they're not guilty, and they're all excited about it. And yeah, they're like, yeah, what's more corrupt than baseball, the court system? I do like that they're all celebrating their win in court, but yeah, they're like that ended our careers and fucked us all over in the long run.
It's like such a weird scene when they hire the that guy to be the judge.
The
Yeah,
mountain
Judge
guy.
Mountain Kennesaw.
Mountain Landis.
It's like the way, like when they go to his office and all the owners are just standing around being like, we thought you were just such a good guy that you'd be the right guy. And he just keeps like killing all the flies that keep buzzing around this office. They're like, I think we'll have
Yeah.
like we'll set up like a committee. He's like, no, I have all rule. Like, that sounds a bit extreme.
I have all the power. 2 years. Lifetime contract.
Unlimited power. And they're like, I guess we'll do that.
Okay.
Like, I guess we don't have a choice.
Yeah, all right.
They couldn't think of anything else. They're like, yep, lifetime contract with unlimited power. Just do that for us.
That seems like it's going to work out well for us. We're gonna go with that. Yes.
Yeah. Again, there was never any cheating that ever happened in baseball after that day. It was perfect. It was a perfect system. Nothing ever happened ever again.
Sports, it all ended. Gambling, just it doesn't even exist anymore. You can't bet on anything.
Yeah, sports betting.
Team.
What's that?
Yeah, sports betting has been outlawed. It doesn't even exist.
Everything keeps coming back. That's why I agree with you. This isn't a perfect movie, but I feel like it does still everything in there is very relevant still today when we are completely on the opposite side of we're advertising sports betting in the middle of every sports game you watch. It's 5 out of the 6 commercials will be for one of the different companies that's offering sports betting, but they want to tell you
it's like Fanatics, buy our clothes, or what is it?
DraftKings or FanDuel, MGM Bet.
Yeah,
like it's all there.
Exactly.
So they're always advertising, and then they wonder because they keep having like the Shohei Ohtani thing, and there's been other players in sports that have been suspended for gambling on games, and they're like, I can't believe like. Why do these guys keep trying to bet on sports? Don't they understand that's bad? You're not supposed to be betting on sports. Oh, by the way, this is brought to you by DraftKings.com. Like, we just can't figure out why they want to keep betting on sports. It's not like there's someone telling them they should bet on sports every day.
I guess I don't even understand the concept of why people are so against gambling. I get there's a risk to it, and people get addicted to it, I guess, too. But even in this movie, there's that small bit where the wife's like, I bet you $5 that he I can't remember what it was, strikes the guy out or something like that in the first inning, and she loses. And I feel like that is probably, even in the world where like you can't bet on sports, that's always existed. Like, we played games like that whenever I worked in my first job. They did the what is that called, like the calendar betting thing where you would you'd buy like the squares, and if your score ended up be ending where then you would win the money. So like, high stakes gamble, they're not going to bust into that. I don't understand why anybody cares about it. I mean, to an extent, I get this concept of, hey, this guy can bet money on something that he can rig. Like, he can rig.
It's like that's the only
determine the
that's
outcome.
The only time where it's not where it's can't be doing that, like betting on your own game that then you're going to throw or something like that and making the money. But a lot of them have been, like I said, I brought up Pete Rose earlier. He's the other major gambling figure of the past 50, 60 years. He's the gambling guy. And I think largely he wasn't betting on his own games. I think he was betting on like other teams' games, but it was still viewed as, but he was gambling on baseball, so we're going to have to ban him for life. I get that to a degree, but I'll never understand people that are like, it's despicable that you're gambling on who's going to win that football game. Like, if you're not like, it's not like this, the laws that they have about insider trading for like the stock market, like that I get to a degree of like, well, you knew that this was going to happen and you sold everything, but somebody else lost everything because, they didn't have the same privileges that you had in knowing that information. So I get that to an extent, but beyond that, wanting to keep the game unriggable, I guess. I can't think of a word of it. Like, trying to keep the sport itself as fair as possible. I get that. I don't really see an issue with gambling. I mean, if you have some problem where you're just out gambling all the time, sure. Like, you're living on the street because you just gambled all your money away. You're describing I mean, I've heard stories about people basically stealing money, going to the casino, and hoping that they would win and be able to put the money back that they stole. Like, that was a big thing when we were at the bank. That was like a scenario that they've brought up. That's why they had like random audits and stuff to make sure that all the money was there. Because like, what's stopping somebody from saying like, I'm going to take $100, steal it, that's not mine, and I'm going to go put it all in black and win. And now I made $100 and I can put the $100 back. Spending money that's not yours, making money, I get the complexities of that. Where could it go wrong? It's the perfect plan until you lose it, until you lose all the money. And then they're probably like, if I go steal a little bit more money, I'll definitely win it back. Yeah.
And it's just
it's like all right, well now I can see where this becomes a problem.
Yeah, then you're in a much different movie.
Well, that's basically what they do in this movie. That again kind of brings the whole thing down a little bit when the guys start to not throw the games. When they go to collect their money, the different gamblers all keep saying, "Oh, it's all out on bets. I had to put it out to cover my expenses, so it's all on bets. So I don't have any money to actually pay you to throw the game." And then the guys go, "Well, why am I going to throw the game if you're not paying me the money? Like, how are you? Like, why should I do that if you're not going to give me anything for it?"
Yeah, and it's not even like a deep thought. Like, it's not a hard concept to understand. It almost feels just very natural. Like, that's what happens in that world. I can see like the idea of high risk, high reward. People do that shit all the time. I'm not a big gambler because anytime I go to the casino, I fucking lose. But I'm not really playing any like table game. I'm not playing anything really strategic. I'm usually just like at a slot machine, like, fucking lost $60. I'm out. But it takes you how much time to make that money? And then you lose it? That's where I stand on it. I was like, I don't feel like throwing it away. I don't even have fun doing that. It's not fun to me. Push a button and all it is like, here's money. We took money. We took money. Here's money. Like that. I don't know. Give me like Resident Evil, and if I do really good, then give me a jackpot. I'm in. That's cool. That's how games should be.
Anytime I think of gambling with like slot machines and stuff like that, I always think they always have videos and stories about the people in Japan that go crazy with the pachinko machines because gambling is technically illegal there, but you can play that game and then you take all the things you win, basically like the tokens you win from the game, and take them next door to a place that conveniently buys tokens for that specific game that you just played and gives you money and prizes. Like, it's the stupidest workaround. Like you're saying, what's the point of saying?
I mean, it's not a stupid workaround. It's an obvious workaround.
You question why don't they just finally get in the modern age and just let it be gambling? Just let it be money in the machine. Like, why are we still at this point where we're making people do extra work just that they're gonna get the money? Like, you haven't outlawed these things. They're gonna get the tokens from the pachinko machines. They're gonna take them next door and they're gonna get their prize. Like, just cut out the middleman already and just let them gamble if they want to.
Exactly. And that's even like recreational marijuana. It makes me think of something like that where you've seen the studies. It's not the type of drug that you even care to fight. You could literally be taxing and making so much fucking money off of this, and you're not. If you want to fix an economy, that's a great way to get a lot of income going back into your state. So it's like stupid not to do it. And that's kind of like where I think gambling kind of like popped up, where it was illegal for like the longest time, and now we have how many casinos in the area? I mean, we don't have like a billion. We're not Vegas by any means, but there's casinos.
Gamble on your phone. You don't even have to go to the casinos anymore.
Yeah, we got live dealers right on our phone.
Yeah, you don't have to leave the house to lose all your money.
I feel like that might be a little dangerous.
Yeah.
But I mean, it falls on the individual. If you're up at 3 a.m. and you're gambling on your phone, things might not be going well for you. Life might have went the opposite direction than what you were hoping for.
To take care of.
But yeah, I don't like losing money. Most of the games I don't think are fun. I'd probably be more interested in playing a game like Blackjack. I'm not too bad at, but I've never played Blackjack in person ever. I've only ever played Blackjack on like a Blackjack game where like I'm not even betting real money. It's just like playing the game. At least there's a little bit of chance for strategy in something like that.
You're doing like the people that drink non-alcoholic beer. I like the taste of it, but I don't want like any of the consequences of possibly losing my money. But I like to pretend I like to gamble.
Hey, sometimes they need that, like they're trying to trick their alcoholism into thinking that it's alcohol. Tastes like beer, but it's not working. Yeah. I don't know what's going on. But yeah, I sat on this movie for too long. I think that it's a good movie. I would have cut some characters out. I feel like an audience could have watched this without having a lot of it being explained to them. I'm not saying it's like force-fed. It's not that bad. It's not like dumbing down the audience. But I do think that maybe it's a more interesting movie for people that are maybe not interested in sports. That might be all of our movies. I tend to be the person too, Chuck, that I'm not a huge sports person. I have been watching all the Steelers games the last 2 years. I think I don't know why, but I've been into that. Movies end up being so much better, I think, when you can connect like a little bit of character to it and you can make it a little bit more personal. Like I like that show on Netflix, F1.
Yeah.
Drive to Survive. I think it's a great show. I like seeing what's going on with those individual people, the drivers and everybody else. But when I'm watching the game or watching the race, that's not as interesting to me. Well, F1's a lot more interesting to me than, say, something like NASCAR. Like, went to like events like that, and I'm like, holy shit, they're just going in circles for 500 laps. This is a little insane. And I know that it's more like a technical thing. Like, we got to time it. We got to time the tires. We got to time things on the vehicle. We got to be able to replace, like, there's a lot more that goes into it. But when you're in the stands, you're not getting all of that, so it's not as interesting.
Yeah.
This might be your second baseball movie. You did the No documentary.
I don't think we've done any other.
I think that's a really great documentary for when we did our sports movies.
It's a good way to mix up the baseball stuff. Like I said, you have to throw something in there to make baseball more interesting sometimes. So having a guy on
you got to try new things. You got to try different pitches.
You got to mix it up there a little bit.
There you go. Baseball. Everything is an analogy to baseball for some reason. Even in the movie business. You got to pitch this idea. Well, everything's baseball related. Yep. I would not have wanted to been on any of the opposing teams whenever they were throwing the ball and striking the people. I'd have been like the people that were up the bat. And then they got beamed, and they're just like, Jesus Christ. That's one thing where I'd be like, can you like throw the game in a way that doesn't physically injure me, please? But yeah, I think like you said, when we were wrapping up War, and you kind of teased this a little bit, none of these are like very uplifting sports movies. I didn't see your last one either, so you did a good job of picking movies I haven't seen. The next week, we're going to do Black Swan. I was just trying to think of a unconventional sport. I mean, obviously, that's like a psychological thriller.
I still say ballet is not a sport, but I'll let you have it.
Ballet...
It is not a sport. It's an art.
Isn't sports and art pretty close?
No.
Then why are these all movies? There's an art to it. What do you define as a sport, then?
A competition.
There's a competition in Black Swan.
There has to be a score with winners and losers.
Could you physically do the same things that they're doing?
I can't climb Mount Everest, but I wouldn't call that a sport either.
It could be a sport.
Mountain climbing can be a sport, but not in the way that they do it.
I would say they're still athletes.
There's active people.
People in football and stuff, they do ballet and gymnastics.
That's what I'm saying. There's got to be a score with winners and losers.
We could do that.
I feel like that's what defines a sport. If you literally look up the definition of sport, it's probably going to say something about that it's a game involving the scoring of two opponents with a clear winner, loser, or draw.
Okay. I will get into it more next week, but I would also like to... You don't have to rewatch the movie. I probably won't rewatch the movie, but very similar to Black Swan is The Wrestler. And I'd just like, do you consider wrestling a sport when that's probably just as artsy
it's more art.
Ballet?
It's more art than sport.
All right.
Unless you're talking Greco-Roman wrestling.
Possibly.
Then that's a completely different thing.
But I think if you're saying something is more, there's some element to it that makes it a sport.
There's athleticism, but that doesn't mean you're in a sport.
Take karate. They do competitions where they win trophies and shit. So now it's a sport.
If there was a movie like Bloodsport, that would be a sports movie because they're using karate.
It'd be really upsetting if there's a blood sport movie and it's not a sports movie. So there's got to be winners and losers. But there's winners and losers in wrestling.
Predetermined. It's almost like it's fixed.
It's a fixed sport. Not a great example when you pick 8 Men Out. I wanted to pick something a little bit less conventional as far as like a sport went. But at the time, I was like, it's up to you. You let it slide, so you accepted it. Otherwise, I don't even know what I would have picked. I probably would have picked Field of Dreams or something. I'd have made it your baseball.
Just been all baseball
dream
all the time.
We're just like, we wanted to do sports, but there really isn't any good sports movies out there besides baseball ones. But if you want to watch it, I watched it on Prime with Freevee, and I had to watch 2 ads, and it was very tolerable. It wasn't any of that 2B shit where it's just like mid-speech, like commercial. Febreze. We're just staring at each other. Lovingly, by the way, if anyone cares. It's a loving stare that me and Chuck have towards each other. All right. I will actually consider, while I'm watching Black Swan, what I consider the sport aspects of it. And you could tell me I'm wrong, and I'll probably just be like, yeah, you're right about that. I'm definitely wrong. You got all that 80s talent in this movie. It's a lot of people from popular 80s movies, I would say, or non-popular, like you're talking about Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, but that was like what started that Michael
Yeah.
Rooker's career.
Also, I believe takes place in Chicago.
Do you even know if they filmed this in Chicago?
No, I think I read they filmed it in Indiana.
Chicago is just interesting in general, like
Chicago widely known for its corruption,
the World's
for
Fair and everything.
many different things, not just sports.
Serial killers. There's a lot of notable things that have happened
It's
in
just
Chicago.
a big city. The bigger the city, the more weird things will happen there, because you're just drawing more weird people to go there.
Yeah, or any John Hughes movie. It's always Chicago. It's got to be. I did enjoy the movie. I thought it was interesting. I didn't think it was not going to be interesting. I didn't have any fucking reservations about it at all. I guess when I thought about this movie when I was growing up, I thought of it more as like a baseball movie. It's more, obviously, a lot more than that. I found the whole like being torn about the gambling and everything with the mafia made the story that much more interesting. So if like you like historical things, I guess you think it's pretty accurate for what happened.
Yeah.
And if Chuck thinks it's pretty accurate for what happened, then he's probably right. It's Chuck's world and we're just living in it. Pitch this movie to somebody, then we can go.
Charlie Sheen playing baseball.
Sell it. Tiger Blood? No Tiger Blood.
Oh, he runs straight into that wall face first, so that's all Tiger Blood.
That's method acting?
He did say he's obsessed with baseball. He's made a few baseball movies, and I think that's why he said he would play any role in this movie. He just wanted to be in a baseball movie.
Yeah, he's always like war movies. He's in a couple war movies. So war movies and baseball movies.
He's the other one other than Kevin Costner. He's not making war. He's making baseball.
Costner's just obsessed with westerns and baseball. Like if he's a modern day person, like even if he's Joe anybody, Costner's always like a retired professional baseball. Like it's like no matter what like baseball's he's always a baseball player. I don't know, maybe that was like his dream. I'm surprised he's not in this fucking movie. It's always been his dream probably. He's like,
he probably look
if I could not be an actor, I'd be a baseball player.
He probably played baseball in like high school and stuff like that, and I don't know, probably got injured or something, and that's why he couldn't be a pro.
And then he's like, you know what? Fuck this time. I wish I was just in the Old West. I don't know if you sold the movie to anybody, but I do think that it was good. I will say thanks, everybody, for listening. Again, Black Swan is what we're going to watch for next week. And our episode on that will be out next Friday. This is Sports Month. We're sporting. Stay tuned.
We are Cinema d'Amore. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter to stay up to date with news and information on upcoming episodes. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, Pandora, Alexa, or iHeartRadio. It would be greatly appreciated if you subscribe to our podcast on your platform of choice. We also appreciate feedback, so rate us, review us, and let us know what you think. And above all else, thank you for listening.